Hello everyone, my name's RBG and we are back at ZFS Racing. We saw some more racing. We've got a one-off race tonight in Laguna, Seca in the RX-8 Spirit. R-Spirit? Yeah, RX-8 R-Spirit. A Mazda rotary engined car at Laguna, Seca. And I'm just by myself today. I just got one commentator for today, no co-coms, no teammate. It's just going to be me winging it for an hour, talking non-stop in your creamy ears. So, we have 12 people currently on track. We have 13 people signed up tonight, but currently 12 people on track at the moment, practicing ahead of qualifying. That's going to be starting in around about 8 minutes or so. Let's have a wee look at what we have tonight, anyway, whilst the guys are out on track warming up. Let's leave someone who's going around at the moment. So let's flip over to the race settings. So we can see tonight's race settings there on screen. You can see, as I said, RX-8 Spirit R at Laguna Seca, lovely Mazda car, drive round road car. We're doing 27 laps tonight, so it should take around about 40 minutes the entire race. We're having a good start. We're on sports tyres tonight, so a little bit more slip and slide as we drive around. Tyre wears times 14. All tyre compounds are allowed, but none are mandatory, so we should see a lot of different combinations out there. Fuel depletion is times 5. Refuel rate is at 7 litres, so neither slow nor fast. They do have a starting fuel tank of 90 litres, so not going out there with a fuel tank tonight. We have a sunny race, SO1, the warmest conditions you can get, starting at early morning and going at times 12. So an interesting race tonight. I think, like I said, with the free tyre choice, it's really going to leave our drivers up with quite a lot of free reign of how they're going to put this together. From what I've seen earlier, the practicing out on the soft tyres, as you can see, Sykes, well, you can't see because I've got a big settings card in the way, but currently got Sykes out on the soft tyres at the minute. Normally you see most people run them for about 8, maybe 9 laps at a stretch. So be interested to see how the guys piece it together. Might see a few different people on 2 stops and maybe someone on a 1 stop, and seeing how it all comes together. So be interested to see how the guys can come up to this. And from what I've seen throughout the day, we haven't had a huge amount of practice, so might be a few drivers making it up on the fly, which always makes for slightly more exciting racing. We're starting in 6 minutes, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip over the predictions and we'll see where we expect our drivers to be finishing tonight. So leading out, and our expected winner is going to be Amsterdam, who's our only diamond driver tonight with a leading rating of 2,471, so he is clear favourite tonight. If he doesn't win, he can hang his head in shame and possibly never turn up here ever again. From there we have second place Vescu looking for quite a rare podium for himself in the top up lobby, so it'll be really good to see him up there. Crazy Taff we've got predicted in third place, our first gold driver in there. Again, great to see him up if he can get there, up there in the top 3. We've got a relatively new driver, only driven with us once before, Mr. Cool, out on track, expected in 4th place. Then we've got Wooly. I'm going to get laughed at if I say it wrong. Wooly. I'm going to just call him 69 because that's the bit I focus on. He's predicted in P5, another new driver with us. KW, long established drivers of it. He's coming in at P6. ST, we're expecting to come in at P7. Y20 or Yorkie, or however I'm going to refer to him, is going to come in. We expect around about P8. Sykes coming in, we think, a pound of P9. Lazy Dutchman, P10. Andy, P11. Shik or Shikuka or Shikaka, no one's really worked out how to pronounce it correctly yet. It's going to be expected around about P12, and expected in final position is past the Dutch. So it'll be interesting to see those predictions at the end and see if some of those guys who are predicted at the back can really make some gains and maybe jump up a few positions in a race that really could see us mix up the pack a bit, because we're normally, when we race in our leagues and stuff like that, we normally split our lobbies up, so we've got quite a mix of drivers on here tonight. So it'll be interesting to see how it all spreads out and how people how it will come together, and I hope to see a couple of outliers in here in terms of what we predicted, because we always know the predictions don't always pan out, as we learn through the weather. So I'm going to flip us over to gameplay, and we're just going to stare at people go around in circles until they're ready to race at the qualifying. So here at ZFS Racing we have specific qualifying rules. One of those rules is you have to qualify. You have to race on the compound you qualify on. So we'll be interested to see what qualifying tyres people will use going out there tonight. I have to try and remember about these keyboard shortcuts as well. Been a while since I've used them, so forgive any errors that may or may not happen. Gonna jump into chat. We have Amsterdam giving us a wee little smiley face. He knows his favourite and he wears it well on his face. He likes it when Emil's not about. He gets to swing his wee little penis around. Schick saying hello buddy. He was tempted to do co-coms tonight, but he really wanted to get out on track and throw it out there at Laguna Seca, so I released him onto the wild and thought I'd sit in and see if I could tackle this commentary business on me Todd. And we've got Chris, also known as Vroom Vroom, also out there. Thanks buddy. I've been writing that intro all day, literally, and I'm exceptionally proud of it. And yeah, if you're in this watching along the stream, feel free to get involved in chat, and I will endeavour to check it and engage with the audience, which is I think what they advise you to do when you do this YouTube stuff. Lazy Dutchman running a little wide there, going up towards the corkscrew. Interesting turn, the corkscrew, especially in this sort of car. Always quite a dreaded turn. I actually quite like driving it. Lazy just losing a little bit of the rear there as he's coming through there. I quite like driving it. It's got a nice little feel to it, especially in the VR headset. We've got Idol joining us. Hey Idol, how's it going buddy? Thanks for coming in and dropping by. It's be good to see you on track again. I know you've got things that you got to deal with, bro, so it's all good, but long-term driver there coming and saying hello. So our current purple time out there is Crazy Taff, who during this session has run the fastest time so far in the practice session we've had open for. I know the timer says about 22 minutes, but the actual session's been going for around about an hour. I think the best time I've seen throughout this whole practice endeavour, I think someone said there was a 38.4 thrown out there earlier, so it'll be interesting to see if we can get anyone top that in the quali session. As we're now roughly about 2 minutes away from race time. Meaning I'm going to have to come up with things to say for 120 seconds. And we have Vesku joining us in the chat. Hey Vesku, thanks for jumping in buddy. Good to see your text appear on a screen. So if you're not familiar with us, we're ZFS Racing. We're a wee little racing community that's got a kind of meta game going on where we've got our own hand-built career mode, because I'm a sadek and got nothing kind of better to do with my life other than to neglect my children and my family and my responsibilities. We've built a career mode where you basically come and join us on online races, on multiplayer races online. We absorb your results and keep track on how you're doing. Serve you back a bunch of kind of race data, because all of us sim racers do like our race data. Give you a ranking, and every race you do, you earn a little bit of our virtual credits, which you can then spend on marketplaces to buy cars for future races. And we've kind of tried to make our own little kind of game inside a game where we use Gran Turismo as our platform for racing, but we use our website as like the meta game we play. And yeah, so we've been running that sort of that system now for, I'd say, pushing on almost 2 years now. We've been going for about almost 3 years, but we've been pushing that system in particular for about 2 years. And yeah, ups and downs, but I think it's been particularly enjoyed. And it looks like the guys are resetting the lobby now too in order to set up qualifying. So I can stop talking absolute poop and start focusing on what's going on in front of me. And we also have Dean and Mild Tidus. Hello, thank you guys for dropping in. Chris overpraising me here. I think what you're referring to, Chris, there, top-notch production values, is money and time that I have wasted in trying to learn how to do this stuff. Your kindness is super appreciated. So the guys are just jumping in now in their cars. They'll be choosing the right tyres that they want to be using for the race. And let's see how it all pans out. As the guys ceremoniously honk their horn, it's a ZOS tradition that prior to a race you give your honk a little honk. Famously, we had a driver of his once who didn't map his honk clue, so in his ceremonial honk he just uses his voice to honk as opposed to his thing. And it was possibly the funniest thing I'd heard on that Tuesday. Which is not a wide range, but you know, this is what you do when you're trying to kill time prior to a qualifying starting. We've got Dean with us, Dean, aka Frowny, which is good to know. Lazy Dutchman, who should be on track, just popping in, saying hello, showing his love. Everyone wishing each other good luck. Such good vibes around here. It's not normally the way. Normally people screaming at each other. That's what we do. I jest. Ooh, someone going out. That's what they're doing. So, wishing each other good luck. Like I said, if Dan pulls his finger out his bum, we should be starting this race any moment. So our qualifying session is going to be 10 minutes long, so should be an opportunity to really bang in a nice lot of laps. Obviously, average lap times here banging around the 140 sort of area. So you're going to comfortable three or four laps in. So what's the strategy, Rabs? Well, the strategy is I have no idea. I don't, you know, I was saying earlier in the stream, from what I've observed in the community today, not many people have practiced this one. So I think there's going to be a lot of people just making it up on the fly. So in respect to all the drivers, I'm going to make it up on the fly as well. Taff saying hello to me there. Probably what it is. And also he says he wants to have a good race. Let's have a good race, and he's also a beginner. Which literally isn't true, but kind of on track is. So looks like our qualifying session is starting. And we'll keep an eye on our drivers. See if we can get on board with someone as they go out, as I quickly break the immersion of our shortcuts to put on the race display info so we can see what's what. So it looks like most people going out on their soft tyres, with the exception of Yorkie and Pastor Dutch, who are going out on their medium tyres. We have 12 drivers out there today, so we are missing one person short, but 12 out of 13 is not bad, right? So M21 Mr. Cool is out there leading the way on the out lap, which is my most favourite lap of any race, because I don't have to try. And real good time just to get a little feel for the car as you drive round, honk your horn a little bit, get in drivers' heads. You know, that's what the whole horn honking is. You just, you know, it's all about the psychological game, the strategic honk. You follow the guys around, and we're going to choose a candidate to jump on board with for the out lap, and I'm going to select ZFS Crazy Taff, as he was our purple lap driver with what is a stunning white and pink livery there, nice floral anime as well, anime pattern, which I wouldn't expect from a Crazy Taff, but he's certainly been spending the past month trying to find himself. So we're going to jump on board with him. Let's go on a more appropriate angle where we can actually see what's going on. If the keyboard shortcuts work, which they don't, which is fantastic, which is what we like to see. So we'll just do it the old-fashioned way with the R1 button on my pad. As we come round to the first corner, he's just created space between himself and Yorkie up in front of him. As he kicks out, you can see our drivers are going to have to really fight the rear of this car tonight. It's a fun car to drive, but the rear just need a little bit of work. And a lot of chat in, talking to chat around compliments of those liveries. Milton wanting a bit of a spectacle of the liveries, which I am not willing to offer, because I am all about that racing, bro. As Taff comes round the exit of turn 1, nice sweeping hairpin there. Here, I always like with this turn, it's always good if you try and turn a bit late. If you try and jump into that apex a bit too soon, you lose a bag of time. And that's true with probably a lot of corners at Laguna Seca. Normally what I see a lot of beginners doing wrong at Laguna Seca, and I don't profess to be any kind of expert, I'm very much a mid-pack driver at ZFS Racing, but you know, one thing I do notice at Laguna Seca is people trying to jump into apexes too early. You know, you've got a lot of 90-degree angle corners, and your best way to approach is not trying to jump into that apex too early and making the exit narrow. So we had Yorkie having a little spin in front there. Unfortunately, has killed his first chance at a hot lap, but he's going to have another 2 or 3 chances to put in hot laps, so certainly not a bust for him. As Taff comes around the corkscrew now in second gear, kicking it out, getting to the right-hand side of the track early, and just coasting us over with a little feather of brake coming into the second last corner. Braking just before the little 2 marker on the left-hand side and pushing down, and normally braking where about this 3 marker is. Maybe a little bit after that as he pushes down to second gear. Maybe missing that apex a little bit, not getting his best, as Craig brings in a 39.1. Great time by Mr. Cool there. going to be a time to beat for sure, as Taft now comes in with 39.5, securing himself P2 on the grid. We'll jump back to Kieran now. He's going to come over the line with a 41.5, so that's going to see him a little bit low down the pack. Sure, there's going to be more opportunities for him. Yorkie had a bit of a bad one, so we'll not sit with him. Pastor Dutch has come over 144, Dylan come over 142, Andy won a 143. Yorkie, obviously, we had that spin there with a 204. ST were 144, Woody were 140.1. So, big spread of time there. Schick obviously must have had a bad luck there, spinning at the 2 minute time. Gonna have another few laps there to see if he can really push down to those lower 140s, higher 130s. As they continue out there, I can see Dan currently sitting in pit at the moment. I don't know if he's giving himself a wee little challenge for maybe racing him out at the back, or if he's actually genuinely just preparing and sorting some bits and pieces out. As we're now on board with Y20 as he's tried to salvage his second lap. Coming up now to the left hand leading up to the corkscrew. Nice high speed corner here. Need to try and carry as much speed as you can without pushing yourself too much over that green stuff onto the sand. Get a wheel on that sand and you're not going to have a good time. And I suspect that's what happened to Yorkie last time he went up here, but he's managed to get through it this time. Braking up into the corkscrew, probably a little early on the brakes there, but nothing wrong with being a little early on the brakes. People spend so much time focused on their specific braking points and where precisely they have to be braking. I've always been a fan of trying to put more focus in what your apex and speed is. What speed are you carrying through that corner? What speed are you going to carry out into the exit? Any advice for anyone starting out in this game, again from someone who's a kind of mid at best, is don't focus so much on where you're starting braking and focus more on what speed are you going at the point you hit your apex. Always much more important, in my humble opinion. So a few more times have been thrown in, so we've got Crazy Stuff still sitting up in second place with that one. He's actually improved slightly with 139.3, running purple though in the first sector, so he's going to be licking his lips to see if he can grab himself a pole position here. Lazy Dutch will jump on board with a very competent P5 at the moment. Best time with a 140.6. He's got to be pleased with that. He's got to want to hope he can end in the top half of this race. That would be a very pleasing result for Lazy Dutchman. We'll jump on board now with Andy. See how Andy's getting on. Our friend from the other side of the pond, who I think is French, but I'm not sure. He is coming up to left-hander now. He broke between that, just around that little 2 marker on the right-hand side. Again, not quite hitting that apex probably as you would 100% like, but certainly not a pad corner at all. And we'll see where he's at, whether he's up or down on his time, see if he can make some gains from P7, getting himself in the top half of the grid. And obviously with this being a one-make race, I always feel like, you know, when you're in a mixed category race, qualifying is still important regardless, but obviously when you've got, you know, you could be in a car that loses 2 or 3 places off the line, so ultimately qualifying here, neither here or there. And obviously you're different cars have different points where they're going to be stronger. You're going to have your chances. When you're in a one make and obviously everyone's in the same car and it's just down to driver ability, I always try and put a bit more value into qualifying in your grid order, because obviously you're not going to have those natural car advantages or unnatural car advantages. I was actually meant to say a natural car like disadvantages that would change how you shape your race. A one make, driver ability, how you know, a true test of who's the best at driving this car on this track. Under these conditions, I suppose. Some improvement there you can see coming in from Andy, running a 140.2, so that season climbs up to P6, so well done Andy on making an improvement. Mr. Cool still our pole position leader with 139.1 grand, brilliant time there. We can see Kieran and Taff have actually come in for a fresh set of tyres, see if they can got enough time in this qualifying session to put another lap in. I think they do from what I can see. Let's have a little bit further back. So Kahid Cambria, also known as ST150, currently sitting in P9, out on his 5th lap at the minute. Current best time was a 142.091, so wanting to push himself in those 140, 141 areas to jump up a few positions. Really going to have to probably grind a real lot of his time. If you look at his difference between him and P8, it's almost a whole entire second, so he's going to have to really find those low 141s, high 140s if he wants to make any progress in this qualifying session. Although P9, starting from P9, you can still do a lot of damage from there. In fact, starting from P12, you still do a lot of damage. So not something to be too concerned about for ST. So Sykes putting in a time there, 1:39.2. That's a fantastic time, which sees him jump up to second position on the track ahead of Crazy Taff. Now Crazy Taff with the fresh tyres, I'm sure is going to have something to say about that. And let's see if he can come around and pop himself up a couple of positions. Let's jump on board with Wooly 69. It's whatever I choose it to be. As he comes up now towards the corkscrew, best time so far, really respectable, 1:39.6, only about half a second off our race leader pole position. So seems a bit slow to me going through there. Is everything okay? I don't think that was. I think he was obviously distracted, or he's doing something. He's burning fuel, maybe. I'm going to say he's burning fuel. Let's just leave him to do his thing. Lazy Dutchman, 2 temps up at the minute on the end of his first sector. Best time at the moment of 1:40.6. Again, good time there from Lazy Dutchman. Be great to see him quali inside of the top half of the table. He's got to find himself about half a second in order to make gains on Andy and find himself up in the top half. So let's sit on board with him for a little bit, see if he can come round. We'll actually come round to the last 10 seconds of the quali period, so everyone's effectively on their last lap now, with the exception of the person coming over the line, whoever that is. But we'll stay on board with Lazy Dutchman as he comes through, but we'll keep an eye on other positions and see if anything jumps around or moves around as the race continues. Sykes is back in the pits, obviously not enough time now to change tyres or anything like that, so that is the end of his pit session. Likewise for Kieran, going to retire himself at currently P5. Lovely drifting going on there by Lazy. I assume he is done his session now, unless that is the way he drives, which is also relatively quite cool. So, not quite nailing that corner there, carrying a little bit too much speed, not reducing speed down enough in order to hit that apex and get the turn of the car before putting your foot down. As he comes around there with 1:43.2, so definitely not improving there. Taff coming around finishing his last lap now. Don't know if he's up or down here, but let's have a little look and see if he's pushing to improve. All he needs to do is gain a 10th on this, and he's going to get in a 1:38. He's snapped pole position on the last lap. Grabbing those fresh tyres definitely helped him out there, and it's pushed everyone down one order. So we've got Crazy Taff at first, Mr. Cool still going round, but he's finished at 2. Sykes in the pits at 3. Wooly still going round. He could potentially make a gain here. Again, I have no idea if he's up or down based on this lap, but he's out there coming round now to the final corner. Again, hitting that apex nicely, losing a little bit of traction on the rear, but don't think that would have lost a huge amount of time. Let's see if he's up or down. He's got to find a lot of time in order to come up, and unfortunately he's down by a temp, so not doing there. Kieran's retired, jumped to Andy, he's also finished his session. Lazy's finished there in 7th. Yorkie's in 8th. Shikuki is in 9th. ST150 is in 10th. Passer Dutch is up in that position. So whilst they just give themselves a moment, let's just remind ourselves of those times on the results. The best time, 1:38.8. So great time there. Definitely beat this time he did in the practice. Setting a marker down for everyone to chase. Dan, as we predicted, was he's going to try give himself a test and race himself out from the back and see if he can give himself a challenge and come from front to back, do the 12th to 1st. So interesting to see if he can do it. But you know what? We're not far off from our predictions here, I don't think. Not too far off at all. But you know, we've had a few people out there who did their qualifying on medium tyres. I believe from the top of my head, I want to say Andy. I should have remembered this, but I didn't. So, we'll jump that now and wait for the guys to trigger the race, and we'll do our thing. Great quali session there. Really strong times. We've had 5 drivers breaking the 140 barrier, getting in those 39s. 7 drivers getting under those 141s, 9 drivers getting under the 142s, and 10 drivers get under the 143s, and then we've got Dan. So we are having a good start tonight. So we expect a bit of bumper to bumper action through the first few corners, as we repeatedly drill into our drivers at Zero Racing. You can't win a race on the first corner. You can only really lose a race. So we always ask our drivers to be as mindful as they can in the early stages of the race. Give people enough room as you can, and you know, just seize on opportunities, seize on mistakes, but don't jump up on everyone all the time, because it will eventually, someone will die. And this is an endurance, not a sprint. So you're going to have your opportunities. If you're fast enough and you've got a good plan, you've got a good strat, you've got yourself in a rhythm, you're consistent, you'll do well. It's not about the individual overtake that you can make in the first 20 seconds. So we're starting the race now, as it's been triggered, and we'll watch it unfold in front of us. As the guys just watch the intro, let's go for a more cinematic camera angle, if we can, which I enjoy. And we're looking at starting. Let's get ourselves up some race details as well, as we wait for the start of the race, with Crazy Taff up in pole position. And our drivers are off for the 27 laps at Laguna Seca in the RX-8 R Spirit Vision thing car. For some reason our shortcuts aren't working for camera angle, so I'm going to have to make it up on the fly. But we can see now, no real big moves. We see, is that Amsterdam up on the upside? You see Amsterdam's making some big gains already up to P7, gained a lot of positions there at the start of the race. And we'll jump back in a bit and have a look at that and see what happened. But we'll keep on board with the guys now. A little bit of touch there by Schick into Yorker. And he actually gets a little bit of bump from behind from ST through the cascade effect. But he's going to have to concede a bit of space and just let people through on that one. We'll jump up and up to P6. You can see we're on board with Kieran. He's got Amsterdam moving up to P6 on his left-hand side. He sits behind him, and Andy up in P7. Crazy Taff still sitting up on P1. Mr. Cool in P2. Up in P4, we've got Sykes holding nicely. Managed to build a bit of a gap between his and Andy behind him. Andy about 8 tenths behind him. So if Sykes can just manage this gap and build up a little bit, this is what you want to do early in races, is establish gaps, establish packs, try not to scrap and try not to fight too much. The more you fight, the more you lose time, the more you create a pack in front of you, which you then struggle to catch up because you're just in a constant scrap with the people around you. And you got to think about the long game sometimes. On board with Amsterdam at the minute, who's having a look at Andy here in P5. Just sitting in there on the outside. He's going to look at probably taking a move in a couple of turns, but he's certainly in no rush to do that. I know Dan to be a patient driver. Kahid Cambria or ST150 in a little comfortable gap of 1.5 seconds front, 1 second behind. So he's going to try and nurture that position, maybe even try and pull something back on Schick and see if he can make some gains in this race. Let's jump up to P5 with Andy. Andy, as we were saying before, had Amsterdam sat up just behind him. And he's got that gap in front, the gap about 1.5 seconds in front of him. You can see Sykes picked up a 0.5 second penalty. So he's going to make gains there. A 0.5 second penalty on this game is normally about a 1 second penalty, really, through the time you actually lose. Not just for the time you lose through the penalty line, but proceeding. Oh, and Sykes loses a bit of thing there. And, oh, unfortunately, Andy is struggling to avoid it. No damage taken. Oh, and Amsterdam coming around now. Oh, a little bit of carnage there. And, unfortunately, that's going to hinder a couple of people's races there. I don't think there's really anyone can do. It looks like Dan might have been doing some avoidance there to try and avert what was happening with the driver that lost control, and it looks like with that it fortunately resulted in a bit of carnage as Andy concedes a couple of positions here to Kieran and Yorkie as they go through. Crazy Taff still holding firm up in P1, actually sitting on a nice little comfy gap of just over a second, just pushed through a second and a half going through that corner actually. Mr. Cool, not letting him go though, is pushing up and is going to want to hold that gap, whilst also pushing further away from Woolley, who is in P3. Going to be happy with that, and again, a lovely comfortable gap between these top 3 drivers and Kieran, who's in P4, about 6 seconds behind. As Woolley goes a little bit wide there, going to lose himself 0.5 second or so due to a little error. Kieran, going to be happy with this position in the race. I think he's a strong driver when he gets his head down and really starts to focus. And I think if he can do this and he can finish P4, I think he'll be quite pleased with himself. It'll be good to see him. He's had a few struggles the past few months trying to adapt from a pad to a wheel, and I know it's had an impact on his pace and his consistency, but he's kept working at it, man, and that's what it's about, man. Like, you keep working at it, eventually it'll come. I'd probably say, and he'll feel like this, he's probably still not quite where he was at on pad yet, but he's certainly on the way, man, and that's what it's about. Let's jump back and see what's going on. So we have ST150 sitting back here, not carrying any damage, sat in behind Sykes and Schick. They're going to be looking to make moves after that little bit of carnage before. Just behind them is Past the Dutch. About a second and a half behind him, he's got Lazy Dutchman right up. Oh, sorry, he's got Amsterdam right up behind him. Actually, when I say right up behind him, I flicked over to him just as he made the move and went in front. So a lot of action going here, but Past Dutch not going to concede that position easily and sits on that inside and carries on and says, nope, you're not having that, bud. Not having that at all. Long old race, Dan carrying a bit of damage on the rear as well. So I've noticed in road cars carrying damage isn't as detrimental to your pacing perhaps all it is if you're in a GR3 or something like that, where that can really affect the top end speeds you can reach and stuff like that. Hopefully Dan's not going to be too affected by the damage that he's received. All of our races do have heavy damage, so once you receive that damage, it's not coming off until you pit and repair it if you want to. So let's see what Dan does and see if that does have an impact on the wider view of the race. I think it's going to be a big ask for him to get up into certainly winning this race, but I don't think it's out of reach really to top half, top 4, top 3. So we'll keep an eye on Dan as he comes on through. Let's jump up and see how close people are. Look at people that are close to each other. And so we are as Andy comes through with a 142.3, I think that said there, as he comes through. In 6th place at the minute, but he's got Sykes right up behind him. And again, a little bit of contact made there. I think Andy should really be conceding that position back, but quite challenging when Sykes making that move up on the inside. I think Andy has conceded that position back, so everyone's a winner. But we've got a tight old race here for P5. With a little bit of rubber going on. I don't think there's anything too spicy going on here, but we have drivers that are really going for it. As Andy looks up on the inside of Sykes there, again just looking for that space, not quite getting it, and Sykes managing to hold on to P5 with Yorkie looking up from that position. It's gonna, there's only a few places you can really overtake here without really slowing yourself down or putting yourselves at really high risk. And these guys need to find a time as Sykes picks himself up a half-second penalty there. That's going to sting, as he knows now when he comes onto that he's going to have to concede these 2 places if these drivers can keep up with them. But now also we jump on board with Yorkie, who's holding that P5 quite nicely now. Going to be reassured of that drop down for Sykes. Should develop him a little bit of a gap, but he's going to have to be careful because Andy's still going to be breathing down his neck. Kieran's going to be feeling quite comfortable at the minute with a 5-second gap either side of him, a clear 5-second gap either side of him, so he can really nurture that P4 now. I don't think he probably feels like he's got that pace to keep up with Wooly, but who knows, who knows how the paces might change once we go through the different tyres. Looks like most people are going to be driving mostly softs tonight's race, but it looks like a lot of the coastal racing is going on at the back here. Tonight we've got a real big battle here for P5 and another big battle here for P9, which will probably turn into a massive battle for P5. So as you see, Schick and Past the Dutch going side by side there through turn 1 and onwards side by side into turn 2 as well. Past taking the outside, Schick taking the inside. There's a little bit of honkers going on there, which we love to see that. Daniel has managed to work himself up a little bit up now into P9, indicating right because he's on the right side of the track probably. Looking at that pack in front of him, probably licking his lips, thinking about all of the racing he's going to have to do in order to get up and work himself through that pack if the damage doesn't slow him down enough. So I'm going to try this and see if this works. The keyboard shortcuts on this haven't been working as consistently as normal, so this may or may not work, but I'm going to see. It doesn't. So we don't have the replay functionality tonight, folks. Oh, you know what I've worked out? It's because I had caps lock on. There we go. We've learned something tonight, guys. Keyboard shortcuts don't work if your caps lock key's on. So I did actually store a keyframe for the start of the race. I wanted to rewatch the start of the race, and that's what I was just about to do, but I can't do that now. But that's okay. We're all right. And we've actually had someone come off there, and I just can see Kieran, unfortunately, has lost his place on the track, and we'll jump back and have a little look now. I've managed to sort himself, but he hasn't lost himself out completely in the race. Doesn't look like he's picked up really damage. He's actually come out in P9 behind the big old pack, but he has lost that comfort blanket he had. Let's have a little jump back and see if we can see what happened, if I can work out how this works again. Okay. Bit of experimentation needed. I clearly don't remember how to do all the keyboard shortcuts on this game. Because the replay system that I thought once worked does not. We're having no replays this race, clearly. I'm having some technical issues, but that's all right. We can just watch it unfold in real time. As Crazy Taff now has nurtured himself like a very lovely 3-second gap up now in P1. Could have been very comfortable in this race, although that front right tyre is now starting to wear a little bit on him, and we're certainly going to have to see Taff jump into the pits within the next few laps, I reckon. And you can see now this is what might be the difference in this race. Mr. Cool definitely not using as much tyre as what Taff is using. Wooly now actually has pulled up quite a lot, Mr. Cool, but has nurturing half a second gap there, so it's going to find it hard to keep up behind him with having to absorb that gap. But again, long old race, who knows what's going to happen. And not holding out tyres, Mr. Cool seems to be doing really well with his tyre wear, and that's something we're going to have to really look out for as this race unfolds. If he's able to stretch out these stints even longer, and it plays out in his strategy, then we might end up seeing him coming out with the race through a pure superior strategy and being kinder to his tyres. Back now to the carnage back here, the battle for P5, as Yorkie's now sitting up as actually battle for P4 now. The Kieran's dropped down, isn't it? Psych absorbing a half second penalty there. He's going to see ST150 and Dan charging up him, absorbing that penalty. Not enough for them to sit up alongside them, as Dan jumps up at that inside, seizing that opportunity there and taking up P6 from ST150, losing a little bit on the exit there. Andy, you can see, trying to see what he can do and seizing an opportunity there as ST has to come offline in order to concede to Dan, as Andy actually loses a little bit of traction, unfortunately, and drops out of that hunt now for P4 and drops to the back of that little group, and Kieran just behind them as well. Really fun race to commentate this this little race here for P4. But we've also got another race unfolding if we go a little bit now, and I believe this is the race for P11. As we can see, we've got a little pack of drivers here at the back, Pastor Dutch and Schick, not too far away each other, so want to see how this battle unfolds and who's going to get the best of each other out of these two drivers. Now, the difference between these two, you can see in a minute, and I don't know how it's going to play out. Schick, although in the lead and sitting on quite a comfortable 2-second lead, is on the softer compound, and we've got Pastor Dutch on the medium compound, so he's going to stretch it out for a bit longer, and Schick's going to have to come in a bit earlier, and we'll see how that plays out between those two with the battle for P11. Yorkie's still sitting on P4, but he does have this group eating up behind him with Sykes and Dan wanting to make their moves up behind, and tell what we'll do, we'll jump on board with Dan and watch this race unfold from behind. As you can see, Sykes taking the right side of the track, Yorkie taking the left side of the track. ST150 still not out of it either, 2 seconds behind. He's going to want to not get out of this scrap. And the best way to do that is if these three keep fighting, that gives ST the chance to pull back up as Yorkie defends his position nightly. Sykes has to concede back to P5. Coming up now to turn 2. Dan probably just sitting back waiting for his opportunity to get that really clean exit. So the problem is even you get that clean exit, it has to be a really clean exit where you can pretty much pass both cars, which is hard to do at Laguna Seca. Because if you're side by side with the second car, you end up just trying to battle the second car for P5, and that gives P4 a chance to get away. And so it's a real challenging position to be in at times when you've got these three driver battles. And you can see ST150 grinding a little bit of time out the back as well. Dan, think about that inside, just not having the pace in order to really justify holding that position. Sits up in the racing line, sits up behind as these three have really sorted themselves out now. Now I'm going to jump to the race to P2, which has actually changed significantly. Wooley's jumped back by 14 seconds. We can see why, because he's parked in the wrong place. Again, replay system would be lovely to tell me how that unfolded, but alas, we do not have that to rely on today. Unfortunately for him, he was looking a really nice race there for P3 and even looked relatively comfortable to maybe have a swing at P2. But as I said, we're only about a third through this race, 9th lap done. Imagine we're going to see a lot of drivers pitting here, a lot of drivers on their softs doing 2 stops. That's what I'm reading. A lot of drivers have gone with for this race. I'm not sure if the guys who are on medium tyres are opting for the 1 stop, whether there's enough fuel to make that happen or not, I'm not sure. But I imagine we're going to see a lot of drivers pitting on this race. On this race? Yeah, they're going to pit in the race on this lap. Apologies. So jump back now with our little free driver battle that's going on now. ST still not able to bring that gap back down. Still about 2 seconds behind this little battle behind us. If you can see him there, you can just watch it unfold in front of him. We need these three guys to really get into each other, and that will give ST the opportunity he needs to get back. Lazy Dutchman sitting in probably a bit of lonely space at the minute. Andy uncomfortably behind him, about 2 seconds off, and with Kieran behind him as well. So we do have some other driving going on here. Probably going to have a battle unfold here for P7 as these two draw up to Lazy Dutchman and look to get past them, and if there's enough race to really see if they can push up to those 6th, 5th and 4th positions. Now what is interesting is I've jumped up to Dan now, and he's only I've got myself confused. The battle for P4 is now the battle for P3 with the spin from Woolley obviously, so he's dropped back now. Purple lap time currently occupied by our race leader Crazy Taff with a really good race pace of 1:39.2. Taff is going to come in and look at his consistency. Obviously he's put that lap in as maybe a bit of an outlier. Seems to be averaging around those high. Actually, you know what? He's not being consistent. He's had a few low 139s, high 39s, high 40. So, you know, holding respectively though, and got a nice comfortable lead of 7 seconds at the top. So going to be feeling relatively comfortable with that. It looks like he might be going for the 1-stop as well with this actually. I was expecting him maybe to be a 2-stopping going on at lap 9. Doesn't look like that's going to be the one for tonight. I think we're going to see what looks like people pushing for the 1-stop, which is interesting. As you can see, the soft tyre for Taff here is effectively gone. He's got to be careful. Is he going to lose the car there? No, he's held it. Nice control there to keep the car together. Let's jump back now to these guys. You can now see Dan sat behind Sykes with Yorkie. Actually fell himself out a little bit out of there. He's actually dropped back with giving ST the chance now to come and battle him for P5. Come on, Lighter. Oh, and Yorkie loses it on the right-hand side, giving ST the chance to come up. And is he going to really lose a lot of time? Let's see how much time he's going to lose to Lazy Dutchman as that gap grinds down. You can see that now coming down to about the 2.5 second marker, and now it's going to bring those gaps together. Now I'm interested to see Yorkie. Is he our guy out there on medium tyres? So he's one of our drivers out there on mediums. But, you know, wear-wise, yeah, it's looking, you know, you compare that to ST, who's on the sports softs, and look at the difference between those two wear. Yorkie is absolutely ripped through those mediums, whereas ST's done a great job at preserving. Fantastic job at preserving those tyres. I don't know how he's managed that. Dan is now, you can see, jumped himself up to 3rd position with Sykes up now, so I don't know. Dan's going to be looking at that. Well, he won't know there's a 20-second gap because he's in VR, but he's got a 20-second gap in front of him. Not unsurmountable because of the pace he's running at and the pace differences, but Mr. Cool's going to have to keep his cool, I suppose. Is Amsterdam a hamster? This is unknown. I can have a look and see how hamster-like he is. As we come now, sitting still with Dan, coming up now to the left-hander prior to corkscrew, which a better commentator would know the names of these corners, but you get what you pay for, and this is free, so you're welcome. Kieran, we're on board with now. 4 seconds gap behind him and Kieran behind, and he's looking here with a little 2-car train in front with Lazy Dutchman and Yorkie for 6th position. So the cars are starting to find their track positions now, and these gaps are starting to develop with not so many tight packs. It got pretty exciting there for, I'd say, between, you know, lap 3 and 8, where we had those real condensed packs and what seemed like almost a 5-car battle for a single position, which is what I love to watch. As Yorkie really does rag the hell out of this car. You can see why those tyres are burning. You can see the way he's driving it. He is smashing it through those corners. And I don't know if it's at the gain of time, unfortunately. You can see that those time he's getting is those mid 141s or so. Not sure if he's a pad driver or not. I'm not sure if he's on wheel. I don't know if that's having a play on it. but certainly is not being the kindest to his tyres as he's driving this, and you can now see he's probably losing a little bit of pace to Lazy Dutchman, although Lazy himself not sitting on most comfortable softs he's ever had, but certainly give me a set of dead softs over a set of dead mediums any day of the week. So Sykes, comfortable gap either side of him, 2.5 seconds in front, 4.5 seconds behind him. I think he, again, in this position, knowing who's in front of me, Dan, managing my expectations. You know, sometimes you've got to do that as a driver. You've got to manage your expectations and try not to win every race. And what I mean by that is when I race, I'm very aware of who I'm going to battle and who I'm not going to battle. If I'm coming up and I've got a driver who I know is a clear favourite and is, you know, a 1 second faster than me per lap, I'm not going to waste time to the drivers that I'm actually trying to race. We're trying to battle and hold every corner to him and hug every inside line and lose time. And then next thing I know, when I'm getting to the end of the race and I'm trying to line up to the people that I am actually racing who are equal in pace to me, that 4 seconds I lost because I couldn't I let my ego go and let a faster driver through in a way that didn't lose me time. And we see Sykes going in now and lap 12. Be interested to see if he comes out on the mediums. That would suggest that he's going for that longer stint on the mediums to make this a one stop. I think most people go for that one stop. Again, amazed by the tyre preservation by ST150. He's really doing well with those tyres. And, you know, banging in about similar, you know, you compare that to Yorkie, banging round about similar lap times. But he's getting a lot more life out of a compound tyre that's even softer. So let's see how Dan is doing on his grind. And he's not really making massive gains on Mr. Cool there. I don't know if the damage is limiting his potential in terms of how much he can push the car, or whether he's not warm yet. But I think considering what happened early race and obviously the spin we had with Dan, I think he'll be relatively pleased to finish this race with a P3 if that's how it comes out and ends out. I suppose the closest race we've got going on here is our little battle here for P5. Lazy Dutchman dropped off a little bit. Kieran is sitting up behind Yorkie and looking for his opportunity to make a move. Looking like he's probably going to pit this lap, so probably he's not going to be too aggressive. He actually gets the move done there, as it looks like Yorkie lost a little bit of grip there, made a mistake, giving both Kieran and Lazy Dutchman the chance to jump off him as our race lead goes in now for pits, as does Mr. Cool on lap 13. Imagine they're going to be both coming out on their medium tyres. Now what's going to be interesting to see is ST150. He's probably going to be one of the very few drivers who can do this race on 2 sets of mediums. I mean 2 sets of softs. I mean, these guys might come out of softs because I suppose it's only 1 lap extra they've got to do. Taff had really killed that front right though. Mr. Cool doing a much better job on those tyres. Dan staying out for 1 more lap. Deciding to this is going to be his 14 lap stint. And you can see Yorkie coming out now. Oh, he's just come in, sorry, with his medium tyre stint. Kieran also coming in, not far behind with his soft tyres, slightly behind on fuel. And we can see most of our drivers now coming in lap 13. Dan taking the extra lap, going at 14 and looking at a 13 stint after this. And looks like Andy, unfortunately, has had a little bit of a poo-poo coming off track there. Unfortunately, it looks like that old letting those tyres run a little bit. So the problem is that front tyres, you lose front tyres, you get understeer and you lose pace. You lose rear tyres, you get oversteer and you spin. And that's one thing I learned is that you can, if you're willing to sacrifice that little bit of pace, because you lose your front tyres a little bit, but you still want to eke out that extra lap to make your strategy work, it's worth considering. But if you're in a position where you're losing your rear tyres, you need to be so careful because it's so easy just to lose the car completely. So Dan's currently our race leader at the moment. A bit of a red herring because obviously once he comes into pit, we expect that to unfold to re-establish Crazy Taff as our race leader, as Dan's getting some drift points in. I don't know if those are intentional or whether he's just trying to fight his rear right-hand tyre, which as you can see has almost exhausted, and that's when it does get really challenging just to keep the car going, as I would expect him to come in now, as he does. We jumped on board with ST now, coming around just about 12 seconds behind Dan. Looking around, and he'll be coming into pit as well. And likewise, I imagine the same with Lazy Dutchman, who's got nothing on the front left. On the front right, and a little bit on the back right. And so it'll be interesting to see where Crazy Taff cops out. I mean, he's obviously going to come out in first, but what the distance will be behind him now. Mr. Cool is actually developed the gap a little bit between him and Crazy Taff. Last time I looked at this gap, it was around about 6 seconds. So he has pushing up to the higher 6 seconds, almost 7 seconds. So he has managed to make an improvement on them there. But certainly not in a position yet where Taff really has to sweat. As Dan, you can see, taking on fuel now. And let's see how these gaps pan out. As these guys are taking that extra lap, probably going to lose a little bit of time, but they're going to have a little bit better tyres towards the end of the race. So we're just waiting for Dan to come out now, so we'll sit on board of him and check that gap as it comes out. When we were before, it was about 19 seconds, 18, 19 seconds when we were last spectated. And obviously I expect him to have lost some time when he was just carrying that last time. And you know what? He's not done bad there, 19 laps. Has got Sykes and Woolley just up behind him though, with only a second between them. So certainly they are not out of the discussion when it comes to P3. Thinking about the pan that the pace of Dan. If Dan can keep it on track and doesn't really make any mistakes, he's got that P3 now down with the potential of pushing for that P2. Although I think 18 seconds is a bit too much for him to push, especially Mr. Cool, who's putting in respectable lap times. If Mr. Cool can keep in those 140s, Dan's got no chance, really. Crazy Taff looking like he's building up that gap as well, now pushed it up to 7 seconds. And I think Taff's looking really, really strong to go on and win this race, which would be really good for him, I think. So let's jump back and let's go from back to front and see what's going on out there. Kieran currently in pit. That looks like a retirement because is that a retirement or is he actually refueling? I can't tell. He might have retired. He's retired. I've just seen him in the chat. Andy is in P11. Currently quite a big gap between him and Schick, about 30 seconds. So he's going to be hoping mistakes happening, drivers in front of him in order for him to climb up in this race. Schick in 10th position with about just about a 9-second gap between him and Pastor Dutch in front of him. There's a lot of races in front of us, and a 9-second gap isn't one that can't be ground down. But he's going to have to find that a little bit of room, a little bit of pace in order to bring that down, or hope for a mistake from Pastor Dutch. Speaking of Pastor Dutch, he is about 3.5 seconds from Yorkie. Again, not an insurmountable gap, I think, pace-wise, unless, again, he's going to be hoping for mistakes from people in front of him in order to clamber up and climb up a few more positions. Again, unless he can... Oh, actually, no. I'm speaking from a misunderstanding here in the sense of now actually Pastor Dutch is on soft tyres, whereas first stint was on medium tyres. So we might actually see a little bit more time out of Pastor Dutch. So actually, Yorkie, as you can see already, has actually conceded a little bit of time. So maybe that's one to keep an eye out there, whether Pastor Dutch moving over to those soft tyres has actually given him that little bit of pace he needs to pull away from Schick and maybe climb up a position or two for the end of this race, see himself up in P7 or even push up to P6. Yorkie embroiled in the moment with a race with Lazy Dutchman. Lazy Dutchman sitting in 7th position. There's a second gap between the two drivers. I know Lazy Dutchman's going to do everything he can to hold on to that P7, but I expect Yorkie to take that position within the next few laps or so. We'll see how that develops. Lazy Dutchman, obviously, he's going to be defending. He's just picked up a half a second penalty. It's going to hurt, and that, with the 1 second gap with the driver behind him, is going to pretty much put him kind of a bumper to bumper going into a corner. So, and he's actually going to be serving that penalty relatively soon. So we'll see how this plays out. This is an opportunity now for Yorkie to really push and see if he can keep that gap behind him to that really close range. So you can get one of the easiest overtakes done. You know, if you want to get an overtake done, do it on the straight. Best place to do it because you're not slowing yourself down. And it looks like this penalty is going to be a little bit too much for Lazy Dutchman to hold on to that position as Yorkie's taking the inside line. I think we're going to have a mini battle, but he's got enough to be able to re-establish himself on the racing line and comfortably ease himself through this corner. Providing he doesn't make any mistakes, it's going to be a comfortable. And he does lose a little bit of traction there, but he holds it together all right and nails himself that P7. So now he's got a 6 second gap in front of him, and also he's got to manage that gap behind him with Lazy Dutchman, who's not going to be letting go that P7 without a fight if he can help it. Jump forward now to SE150 or Coheed Cambria. Comfortable gap. I don't think we're going to see any change from P6 from him outside of mistake he does himself or someone does in front of him. So, yeah, I think we're going to see a comfy P6 there. Jump up to Sykes, one of our newer drivers here at ZFS Racing, doing a really good showing for himself. Unfortunately, you know, had a few errors here and there from what I've seen, I remember, and obviously being embroiled in some cars coming together, unfortunately. But he is currently in a comfy P5 with a comfy gap behind him, with the opportunity still staring at the car in P4 and 3 in front of him. That's 10 laps to go in this race. That is not an insurmountable gap, especially with Wooly taking on that half-second penalty, as you can see now. And this again might be a situation where we see two drivers go through side by side turn one, if there's enough track for him to pull it up, and I don't think there is. I think Wooly's going to hold on to that, and the half-second penalty has not affected him, as Sykes had a little look up on that inside and actually does get the move done, because we saw Wooly there just lose a little bit of traction around the outside, and that lost him the grip he needed to hold on to that position. And now let's see Sykes go up into P4. And again, Wooly, I don't think he's going to give that one up. But unfortunately, I think Wooly's one of the only ones who's on a two-stop by the looks of it. So he's going to have to be coming into pit relatively soon. So we are going to see him slip down the driver order a little bit. And he's going to bring him out probably towards the back of the race. I don't really see how it's not going to do that. So maybe the incorrect strategy chose there from Wooly, but that's how we learn. We learn through doing. So Amsterdam then, not really making any gains on Mr. Cool. 17-second gap, so he's gained about a second or so, but nowhere near the kind of gains he'd need to make in order to make any progress on his race. So really, Dan's focus now needs to be securing that P3. So just keep that pace slightly above, you know, those drivers behind you, which you know you've got that pace to be able to do that without pushing so hard like he has done that he could possibly risk a spin and lose positions due to stupidity. Mr. Cool then. Mr. Cool again is losing ground to Crazy Taff and losing ground to Amsterdam, but if I was him, you know, he's got to be pretty cool at the minute. He's got a comfortable gap to the car behind him. I know he's got a lot of race left, but outside of a catastrophic spin or losing about 2 seconds pace a lap, he is looking pretty comfy here. And let's give our respect and time to Crazy Taff, who's run a wonderful race. Currently sitting with the fastest lap time of 1:38.6. It was a very good time there to put in at race pace. Well, Taff wants to be careful with it. I know Taff is like this, because he's looking at that fast time and going, I could do better than that. And obviously, you just want to be careful, because obviously you don't want to, in the pursuit of the purple time, you don't want to end up having a spin and losing the race, just for the sake of that. Give me the race win any day over the pole. You know, what's better for you? Race win and no pole position, or P3 and pole position? I'd give me the race win every day of the week. So yeah, it's just been a great race to entertain. I think probably the primary area where we're looking at any potential battling still going on, and this is two drivers that are closer together, probably these two here, which are Lazy Dutchman and Yorkie, the fight for P6. Now Yorkie made a move a couple of laps ago and has actually pulled up a bit of a gap between himself and Lazy Dutchman, about a second though, so it's not like he's going kind of gangbusters and easily pulling away from Lazy Dutchman. The difference in tyres, I think, is probably doing it. Yorkie's sitting on a set of mediums, and that's going to ease up in his pace. Although I'm pretty sure it was first sent on mediums, and he probably just feels more comfortable on the tyre. Certainly, since the way we've seen how he drives that tyre and how he drives the car, you can see him just losing and getting so much tyre spin on the rear of his car going through all these corners compared to the other drivers, and is really flinging the car into the corners. So we're going to have a wee break whilst I light another one up. So Pastor Dutch has just gone into pit, another person on the two-stop there. Now, what I'm seeing coming into pit, I'm looking at someone who, yes, his tyre is starting to go a bit. Yes, it won't go to the end of the race. So it makes sense to pit now. If you're not going to go into the race, no point wearing it thin than bringing in dead tyres at 24. I might as well get him in now and get a fresh set on. It makes sense why he's coming in now. He's made that judgment, but don't know if that is a planned one or whether one he's had to just make his mind up on the flies. As he sees him now drop down to P10 and by extension into P11 as now. Now where is Andy? If we jump on board with Andy's just blue flag at the minute, letting Crazy Taff go, but we're not going to be too far away from each other here. Andy and Pastor Dutch, who's just coming out now, just in front of Andy. Taff giving a little honk, maybe a little bit too much honking there. He didn't. He threw himself off and actually considered a position there, which is not what he needed to do. I know Taff gave him a honk and might have thrown him off a little bit, but any advice for anyone who's being blue flagged, if you can get out of the way then great, but if you can't then don't. End of the day it's the overtaking driver who has to get past you, and your race past the Dutch for P11 is just as valid as Crazy Taff's race for P1. So yes, if you're watching this back past the Dutch, you find yourself in that situation again, dude, stay the line. You're absolutely fine. Your race is equally as important. But let's see what he can do now. He's now put himself in an interesting position where he's about 3 seconds behind on Andy, but he's got a fresh set of software. Andy's going to be working those tyres, so has made it a little bit more of an interesting race at the back there to see who's going to win the battle for P10. We can see Crazy Taff obviously sitting still comfy in that P1. Mr. Cool P2. Relatively comfy there, again, nothing really doing, still losing a little bit of ground to Dan again, but not enough that he has to really worry about whether or not he's going to retain P2. Dan, again, really pulling up away from Sykes now, in a similar position, not really got anything to worry about this race, providing he just brings it home. He's gonna nab himself a P3, which, again, considering starting what happened to start this race, he's going to be relatively pleased with that outcome. Sykes, P4. Similar position now, we are seeing these gaps really build between drivers, so we're not really going to see much movement now outside of mistakes. We have ST150 in 5th position. Again, I think we're going to comfortably see him finish in 5th. Yorkie in 6th has pulled away a little bit from Lazy Dutchman, half a second, but he is carrying a half a second pen, so he's going to see Lazy Dutchman gain some ground. And again, I want to see how this plays out, because yes, he might be gaining ground, but again, just like his first stint, he is burning through those tyres. And considering Yorkie's on mediums and Dutch is on softs, you can see that effectively the tyre weight is almost exactly the same. So that is the difference, and let's see how that plays out at the end of the race and whether that's going to make a difference. So Lazy Dutchman, again, he can really be aggressive in this race now. He's got a 30-second gap between him and the person in P8, Schick. So that really affords him the opportunity to just be nice and aggressive, push, and really put the pressure on Yorkie, who is already pushing his car to the limit. So this is the time if I was Lazy Dutchman now, I'd be really pushing like hell. I think you could even tolerate a spin and still be in P8. That's the comfort. That's the kind of gap we've got, and that's the time you push. Schick looking like he's settled here in P8. I think he's going to be really pleased with this. It's obviously unfolded him just keeping it going, keeping consistent, keeping the laps going in, not making any massive errors. And I know Schick's probably not the number one out there when it comes to out and out kind of lap pace, but he's thrown it in. He's let other people make their mistakes, and he has reaped the rewards of that. And for someone who is predicted as one of the back runners, I think for him to come out of this race with P8 will be a good result for him. But Wooly is only about 5 seconds behind him, and considering the pace differences between the two, that is not the most comfortable gap with 5 laps left to go. That is something that can be ground back if Wooly really pulls up his socks and really pushes the car, which he can do with a fresh set of softs. So again, another one to watch out there and see if Wooly can deny Schick the chance of a P8 finish. And as we just talked about earlier, we have Andy and Pastor Dutch embroiled in their battle for P10. Andy's still capturing that 3-point gap, and we have obviously Mr. Cool coming through as a lapping driver. And again, like I said, Andy doesn't feel like he has to concede the position to him. It's up to Mr. Cool to make that move to go past him. But the only thing we asked really from drivers that are being lapped is you do not defend. Number one thing you don't do, you don't hug inside corners, you don't defend, you give, like just like Andy did there. Once the opportunity comes where you can let a driver go, you leave the door wide open and let the driver go for it. So Andy showing there a good example of what you should be doing as a lap driver. Don't necessarily throw yourself off the racing line and throw yourself off track as much as you feel like, oh, I don't want to get in the way of the fast drivers and stuff. It doesn't matter, mate. You paid just as much for this game. Your race is equally as important. Do not throw your race. It's one thing when you're in 10th position, you've got a 20-second gap for the person in front of you, you've got a 30-second gap in the person behind you. Yeah, then just pull yourself off the race line, lose a few seconds. It's not going to make any difference. But when you're embroiled in a race, there's a margin of seconds between you, then it's important. That's why we play the game for. We don't play the game just to drive around in circles. We play the game to race against each other. So don't let the fact that someone's faster in track stop you from being able to race. That's my point anyway. So we are now coming down to the final embers of our Laguna Seca race in the RX-8. Be interesting to chat to the guys after, see what they thought of the car, see if they enjoyed racing it. I know there's some guys who really enjoy throwing a road car around a track, and some guys really enjoy driving a GR3 around a track. We tried to offer a bit of everything. Try and put the schedule together. Always try and make sure each week we've got like 1 or 2 GR3 or 4 races going on, and then another one that's like a road car or something else. So it's not like you're always doing racing cars. You're not always doing road cars. Can be challenging with this game though, especially when it comes to retro cars and how you do them in leagues. So obviously, we want to be an inviting community that lets anyone race. If they just turn up and they go, is there a race tonight? You go, yeah, there's a race tonight. And obviously with the rotating store, used car store and the legend store, for all the older cars being in place, that when you say, okay, let's do a car in an old kind of Group C car or something like that, it's all well and great until that car's no longer available in the store, and you have people join the community going, oh, I want to do this race. You go, yeah, you can do this race, but you don't own it, so you can't. It just doesn't feel right. So that's not what we do, and we try and anytime we do cars and races in older cars, we usually stick it into this retro league we do, where we kind of choose cars a few days before the race in order to ensure they're in store, so people can make sure they can buy them on the day of the race. And would be nice maybe in a future patch one day, once Epiphany decide they want to stop being the worst game designers ever. And I'll qualify that in a minute, but once they sort of decide that they just want to make a game that people can race, then that'd be great. So we come down now to the last few endings of this race. Let's have a look and see how those little gaps are doing. I'm really interested in looking at the gap between Wooly and Schick, which has actually already been surpassed. You can see Schick has actually sat behind Wooly now, so that pass has been done, has been achieved. I think the other one we were looking at is maybe one. It was the battle between Lazy Dutchman and Yorkie, which actually has happened now. You can see Lazy Dutchman has got that move done, finds himself on the P6. And again, if he manages to see this race through, finishing out in P6, he's going to be really pleased with himself. That would be a really, really tight finish for him. As we come down there, but yeah, I'll qualify what I meant about Epiphany. Epiphany, I think it can make a really good racing platform. I really like Gran Turismo, and that's why I obviously spend all my time on it. And I think it's fantastic racing platform. There's elements of it I think are fantastically done, especially the actual racing itself. I just feel like the game design itself, like Gran Turismo as a video game, is just not very good. Just the game design and some of the design choices they make as a team, although they're in their right to make, it just doesn't make a huge amount of sense a lot of the time. And I think that's where a lot of people's frustrations from this game comes from. It's just all these things that people want out of Gran Turismo, and next thing you know, a few hundred thousand is sunk into the development of Music Rally, which no one wants, no one plays, and no one wants, no one cares. And there's about 500 examples of really bad game design inside of Gran Turismo, which makes you scratch your head and think, Why? Why would you do that? I don't know whether that's like you see that a lot in Japanese like development in general compared to Western game development, where it's a lot more of a closed shop, and it is a lot more about kind of trade secrets and keeping things in house, which creates a lot of creativity and comes up with new original ideas. And that's why you see a lot of original ideas coming out of the Japanese kind of gaming landscape. But when you go over to the Western, where it is at times a little bit more only open, a little bit more community based, a little bit more what do the fans think, and what are they kind of wanting. Not always, but I think they can be a little bit more receptive to their communities, and it's a shame that we sometimes don't get that as a community from the people who put the game together. I think it's one of those ones that they think they know what we want, but I don't think they do. Anyway, let's wrap up this race whilst I finish off my rant about why I think Gran Turismo has bad game design, which I feel like is a separate YouTube video in his own right, as we sit on board with Crazy Taff and give him the respect and honour he deserves for sitting in P1 in this race. Now, he has lost ground to Mr. Cool at the end of this race, and that gap is 4 seconds. But with only half a lap to go, unless that front right tyre really destroys his pace, I think he's got this in the bag. But the fact it's even a question mark is actually quite surprising, as he gives a little honk there to thank Woolley for conceding the position whilst he focuses on keeping the race through. Yeah, Mr. Cool himself, not on the nicest tyres, but definitely with a lot more favourable grip than Crazy Taff. Taff with only a couple more corners to go before he nails down the race win for tonight, which I'm sure he's going to be very pleased with. And coming around now, Mr. Cool giving it a good step, only finishing out a few seconds behind as Schick. Trying to get out of the way there, or I don't know if he just had an off, but he's in P8 as he comes through now. Taff coming, nailing the race win. Congratulations, Taff. Mr. Cool with his P2. Schick coming alone over there at P8. Sit on board with Dan now, comfortable P3 there. Like I said, didn't really expect Dan to really shake from that P3 once he come out of pits. I think that was quite a comfortable one for him to see out. And the gap between him and Mr. Cool was too big. I think he needed to be up amongst him in order to compete in that race, as he gets himself that P3. Sykes now coming over the line with 10 seconds behind Dan. And I reckon he'll be pleased with that P4. Congratulations, buddy. Good drive. ST150. Like I said, I was outstanded by the way he preserved his tyres this race. What a great demonstration of how to protect tyres. I'm very interested to learn what he was doing different from everyone, because I think that's a masterclass in what you can do, and just have a really respectful P5 for tonight. Lazy Dutchman, super impressive what he did in this race. P6 for him. I know he's going to be chuffed a bit for that, so well done, Lazy. Good job, buddy. P6 for him. Yorkie coming at P7. Good run from him. Schick as well. Can't be pleased at P8. Well deserved on that one as well. And finally, we had Pastor Dutch finishing in P9. We had Woolley, probably a bit disappointed considering where he was at early in the race, coming in at P10, maybe running the wrong strat on the 2-stop. And then Andy, seeing us at P11 at the back. Again, a few mistakes earlier on. I think Andy had the pace tonight, but again, maybe just too many slips and slops that saw him at the back. And we had a retirement from Kieran, who's actually coming out of the track now. So technically not a retirement, using a loophole there, but yeah, a retirement from Kieran. And that brings us to the end of the RX-8 race. So what a great race to watch. I really super enjoyed watching it. I think we saw some really tight racing, especially that first half of the race where we had those real tight packs of like 4 to 5 drivers all vying for a single place. Absolutely awesome to watch. Congratulations to Taff, who now has himself both the race win and the fastest lap. 1:38.6, what a time. And certainly one that people were struggling to beat. Dan gave it a good swing there with a 1:38.8, only a couple of attempts off, but not enough to topple the Welsh wizard. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I really enjoyed that race. I think if I was to call out a personal driver of the day for that one, I think I want to give it to Lazy Dutchman. I don't know where that fits, and obviously we have our own driver of the day that comes out with the predictions. You know, whoever got highest versus their prediction, don't know who they are, is technically the driver of the day. But I'm not going to work out all that maths now, and I'm going to call out Lazy Dutchman as my own personal driver of the day. I think that P6 run for him is a great result. I jumped on board a number of times. He seemed to be throwing it in. He's going to be happy with that fast lap time of 140.9 as well. So yeah, congratulations to Dylan. Congratulations to Taff. Congratulations to the top 3 drivers and all drivers taking part. I've been Arby. Thank you so much for watching the stream. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and all that other stuff that people on YouTube ask you to do. If you'd like to take part in ZFS Racing, all completely free. We all do it just because we have nothing better to do with our lives than run this absolute turd show that is a racing community. But if you want to get involved, head onto our website and sign up for an account. You sign up for an account, you get given £100,000 of our credits, which you can spend to get your initial garage in our career mode. And with that, sign yourself up for a race and get yourself on track and start earning some virtual credits. And get on board with our little sort of weird career mode that we've created. And yeah, get on board. But yeah, really enjoyed tonight's race. Next week, Friday, we start our new 3-round league, which is in the modern supercars, which sees us go across a few different high-end supercars, road cars that we don't often drive, normally slap them on kind of racing tyres. Go around 3-round season. Not sure if I'm going to race it or I'm going to provide comms. I'll see how I feel next week and see how we go. But thank you everyone for coming in for tonight's commentary. I've been Arby. This has been ZFS Racing, and you've all been absolutely beautiful. I'll catch you next time. Cheers.